In the fog-filled city of Backlund, where mystery hides behind every door and gods whisper from the shadows, another strange night begins. This is chapter 226, The Terrified Zoe. Sherwood Borough, 15 Minsk Street. Klein sat comfortably in a reclining chair beside a charcoal-burning fireplace. The warm air felt like summer. He wore a white shirt, black vest, and thin trousers. A newspaper spread open before him as he flipped through the advertisement section. A line caught his attention. A new type of transportation vehicle is in urgent need of investors, details to be discussed in person. Klein read the ad twice, picked up a pencil and circled it. If there were no commissions tomorrow or the day after, he planned to see if this new invention had investment value. He couldn't divine it, it lacked information. "I hope it's something like a bicycle," he muttered. Just then a faint illusory prayer echoed in his ears. "Who is it this time, Miss Justice, Mr. Hanged Man, or someone copying my passcode?" He set the newspaper aside, returned to his bedroom and locked the door. Taking 4 steps counterclockwise, Klein entered the world above the gray fog. Beside the fool's seat at the edge of the ancient bronze table, a clear brilliance flickered softly. Klein reached out with his spirituality and touched the rippling light. The scene changed. A blurry sofa appeared, and a petite woman in a nightgown was curled up on it. "She's not copying my passcode, she's reading something," Klein realized. It must be one of the Beyonders Miss Justice had mentioned, someone he needed to vet. He didn't respond immediately. He planned to observe her later, test her reactions, and see her character and abilities. He would never force anyone to join the tarot club. Zoe had just finished chanting a line in ancient Hermes. She froze. That was an honorific name," she whispered. Her heart raced, she knew enough mysticism to understand the danger. Reciting the full name of a hidden existence could attract its attention. "What have I done? Those beings are devils, evil gods, and I said it unprotected." Zoe looked around in fear. The sofa, cupboard, paintings, everything remained normal. After a tense minute she exhaled slowly. "It's fine, I didn't complete the ceremony, it shouldn't attract attention," she murmured. But a new thought struck her. What if even an incomplete one works if the being is interested? I'm such an idiot. She groaned and buried her face in her hands. Minutes passed, nothing happened. Zoe sighed in relief, stood up, and walked to the bathroom to wash her face. Cold water ran as she cupped her hands under the stream. Then in the mirror's corner she noticed something. A long, slightly curly brown hair. Her own hair was short and yellow. Every nerve in her body tensed. She spun and slammed her elbow backward. A scream of pain followed. "Fors!" Her friend lay on the floor, clutching her stomach. "When did you get back?" Zoe stammered. "I just got back. Are you insane, Zoe? You almost broke my ribs," Fors gasped. "Why didn't you use the door?" "I didn't bring my key," Fors replied flatly. "The window was faster." Zoe rubbed her arm awkwardly. "It's because I made a mistake, a bad one." Fors frowned. "What mistake?" Zoe explained everything, the hidden paper in the book, the strange writing, and how she accidentally recited it. Fors blinked in disbelief. "Where's your brain?" Then after studying the paper she nodded. "It's not any evil god or devil I know, it should be fine, nothing happened." Zoe finally relaxed. Fors smirked. "Of course if something does happen we're doomed." Zoe paled instantly. "Fors, let's sleep together tonight." "Forget it," Fors laughed, "you'll be fine." They checked the other books but found nothing else. Zoe bit her lip. "Should we go to St. Samuel Cathedral tonight?" "Why not St. Hieland?" Fors asked. "That's the god of Steam's church." "I don't think the Evernight goddess will protect me," Zoe replied weakly. Fors sighed. "Then we'll just attract trouble from both sides. Let's sleep. If nothing happens by morning we're fine." The crimson moon hid behind clouds. Stars faintly glimmered above Backlund. Klein awoke suddenly. He sat up, feeling an impulse, and entered the world above the gray fog again. He considered something new. Perhaps he could pull the praying woman into this space. If it worked, she would think it was a vivid dream. He extended his hand toward the rippling light. Spirituality surged from him uncontrollably. The gray fog trembled, then calmed. A blurry, distorted figure appeared at the bronze table's edge. Klein immediately severed the connection. The figure vanished, leaving a faint crimson star behind. He smiled slightly. "As long as someone chants my name, I can draw them here," he confirmed. Zoe stirred in her sleep. In her dream, she saw endless gray fog and a shadowed figure watching her from above. She woke trembling. Was that a dream, or did I really attract something? Her heart pounded. "There's a gathering tomorrow night. I'll find someone who can exorcise spirits and purify me." Chapter 227, Inventor Leopard. Sitting at his dining table on a foggy morning, Klein broke apart his specially bought wheat bread and soaked it in milk, subtly improving the way he ate it. Though his body had changed long ago, his pursuit of fine food was engraved into his soul. No matter how much time passed, he could never truly adapt to the Lone Kingdom's monotonous and repetitive breakfast: toast, bread, bacon, sausages, and butter. To ease his suffering, he experimented relentlessly, adding variety to his meals. Pork-filled pastries from the south, Fane Potter noodles, roasted corn pastries, anything that could surprise his taste buds. Caviar from the Fasak Empire isn't bad either, he mused, but it's far too expensive, only suitable for formal occasions. He scooped up a softened piece of wheat bread and placed it in his mouth. With just a few chews, the flavors of warm milk intertwined with the natural fragrance of wheat, leaving a faint sweetness as an aftertaste. After breakfast, Klein set down his cutlery but didn't rush to clear the table. He picked up the morning papers and began to read. "I'll do a divination later. If there's nothing urgent, perhaps I'll visit Mr. Leopard at St. George Borough Street to see if his new transportation vehicle is worth investing in." Backlund was truly vast. Each borough was practically the size of Tingen City. The East Borough especially was absurdly large, at least twice as big. The most affordable way to travel was to walk, followed by taking the steam metro and then walking again, but that wasted far too much time. Backlund's public carriage system wasn't much different from Tingen, and the prices were about the same. The problem, however, was that most of the carriages only operated within a single borough. Traveling from Sherwood to St. George required several transfers, which quickly increased the cost. That made the idea of a new transportation vehicle very alluring. Just as Klein's mind began to wander, a loud knock, knock, knock suddenly echoed from the door, heavy, like someone pounding with a hammer. "Who is it? Don't they know there's a doorbell?" he muttered, straightening his collar before walking to the door. When he opened it, a familiar face greeted him, a Highlander man with dark skin, deep-set eyes, and a lean, wiry frame. Klein recognized him instantly. Through a previous seance, he had learned that this man was Muro, an executioner from the Z-Manger gang, second only to the boss. "Excuse me, who are you looking for? Do you have a commission to entrust me with?" Klein asked, feigning mild confusion. Muro, dressed in a black coat and a flashy silk hat, didn't look the least bit like a gentleman. He gave Klein a cold, assessing look before asking in a thick Highlander accent, "Are you Detective Sherlock Moriarty?" "Yes," Klein replied simply. "I want to hire you to find someone," Muro said flatly. "We can discuss the details inside." Klein shook his head. "There's no need," he said evenly. Muro's gaze sharpened. "The person I'm looking for is named Ian Wright. He's about 15 or 16, has bright red eyes, and usually wears a brown old coat and a round hat of the same color. You know him?" Klein chuckled softly. "I don't know what you're talking about." Muro ignored the denial. "He's a thief. He stole something important from me. If you find him, I'll pay you £10. "You've given too few clues," Klein replied calmly. 30, Muro countered immediately. Klein looked at him impassively. "No, that violates my confidentiality principle." 50. "I'm sorry, I can't accept the commission." Muro studied him silently, his eyes growing colder by the second. Then, without another word, he turned sharply and walked away down the street. "This gang's intelligence is better than I thought," Klein mused. "They even know Ian came to me once." He sighed inwardly, but he didn't feel anxious. "After all, I've faced the son of an evil god before, even if there was a belly between us." Smiling faintly, he flipped a coin to decide whether he should go out today. The result was positive. St. George Borough Street. After transferring from a tracked public carriage to the steam metro and finally a trackless carriage, Klein arrived at his destination, spending a total of 11 pence. Just as he alighted, he noticed a drizzle had begun, though he hadn't brought an umbrella. Typical Backlund weather, he thought. Hats were so popular precisely because no one wanted to carry umbrellas all day. He pressed down on his half-top hat and jogged to the shelter of a nearby eave. Brushing off the droplets, he rang the doorbell but heard no sound. Is the doorbell broken? He wondered, raising his hand to knock. Footsteps approached from inside. A tall, thin man with black hair and blue eyes opened the door. He looked to be in his 30s, wearing grayish-blue work clothes, but carried himself with a gentle, refined air. May I know who you're looking for? The man asked, rubbing his forehead. I'm here to see Mr. Leopard, Klein said, removing his hat with a slight bow. I'm interested in his new transportation vehicle. The man's eyes lit up. I'm Leopard, please come in. Klein entered. The house was a mess. The coffee table in the living room was covered in mechanical parts, wrenches, bearings, screwdrivers, and bolts. How much are you looking to invest? Leopard asked quickly. Would you like some coffee or black tea? No, I'm out of tea. Klein smiled inwardly, a straightforward man not great with people. I'll need to see your invention before deciding, Klein replied, scanning the room. His gaze paused on a triangular emblem hanging on the wall, the symbol of the god of steam and machinery, filled with gears, levers, and steam motifs. Leopard didn't seem offended by Klein's bluntness. Of course, I'll show you right away, he suddenly slapped his forehead. But first, a non-disclosure agreement. I can't have my invention stolen. That's not a problem, Klein said with a small smile. After signing the simple contract, Leopard led him into a larger adjoining room. He'd apparently knocked through the guest room and basement to expand it. The floor was cluttered with metal parts, and in the center stood a half-height, unfinished metallic structure that vaguely resembled a carriage. The doorbell's wire was connected to a mechanism there. When someone pulled the rope outside, a steel ball rolled down a narrow track and struck a plate, producing a crisp clang. Not loud, but enough to alert Leopard while working. Is that your new transportation vehicle? Klein asked. Yes, Leopard said with pride. It's based on Emperor Rosel's designs. Emperor Rosel? Klein raised an eyebrow. Leopard nodded, eyes gleaming. Rosel drew many blueprints of machines far ahead of his time, true genius. Some have already been realized. His manuscripts are stored in the Church of the God of Steam and Machinery. Sadly, only devout believers can access them. Klein almost couldn't hold his smile. Emperor, you never stop causing trouble for others, do you? He gestured toward the object. Please explain it in detail. Leopard eagerly opened a small door on the side of the contraption. This is a carriage that doesn't need horses. The driver sits in the front left seat and pedals. The levers transfer motion to a chain connected to the wheels, propelling it forward. I've even added inflated rubber to the wheels for a smoother ride. So a human-powered car, Klein thought dryly. He said aloud, with such a large frame and several passengers, it seems too heavy for a single person to pedal far. That's my next goal, to reduce the weight and extend the lever system, Leopard said earnestly, but I've run out of funds. Klein nodded thoughtfully. Have you considered using steam as the power source? I have, Leopard said, shaking his head, but steam carriages are too large, unfit for city streets. Klein smiled. Then why not simplify? 2 wheels, 1 rider, no outer shell. You mean a bicycle? Leopard murmured. Rosel's manuscript had that too. Klein nodded. Exactly. Those models aren't practical yet, but simplifying them might make it work and sellable. Leopard rubbed his chin. But who would buy one? The postmen, Klein replied smoothly. Workers with modest savings, small businessmen who don't need to maintain appearances but want to save time and money. There are plenty of such people in Backlund. Leopard pondered for a moment before nodding. I can try, but I'll need funds for parts. I'll invest £100, Klein said, in return for, he hesitated, 10% of the shares. 35, Leopard interrupted quickly. But that's only for the bicycle concept you proposed. Klein smiled. Deal. They drew up a quick contract, agreeing to have a lawyer formalize it later, with one clause ensuring new investors would require Klein's consent. Later, under the gloomy drizzle, Klein returned to Minsk Street. He went straight to the bathroom to relieve himself. As the water echoed softly, he bent over the sink to wash his hands. Suddenly, an image surfaced in his mind. In the mirror before him, amidst the dim light and his lowered head, he saw it. A pair of eyes beside him. Chapter 228, The Mastermind. Almost instinctively, Klein bent his knees and rolled sideways toward the bathroom door. Swoosh! A small black-feathered arrow stabbed straight into the wash basin. The arrow seemed to be made of bone, glowing faintly blue, strangely beautiful, yet deadly. If Klein had hesitated for even a second, he would have been pierced through. He reached into his pocket trying to pull out a few tarot cards, but a sudden gust of wind engulfed him. From the corner of his eye, a dark figure closed in at incredible speed. In an instant, it appeared before him. Klein braced himself, twisting his body and kicking upward, but realizing he couldn't dodge, he used his elbow to block instead. Bang! His left arm went numb. His body was thrown aside like a ball being smashed in a game of squash or a soccer ball kicked by a furious player. What immense strength! Without panicking, Klein adjusted in midair, twisting his posture to barely land on his feet. A wooden blowpipe hit the floor with a clatter. Before he could stand properly, his instincts screamed the enemy's speed was beyond imagination. The black-clothed figure struck again. Klein ducked, countering with a swing that hit the attacker's chest. The impact sent Klein spinning again. He planted his hand on the ground, legs scissoring wide, narrowly avoiding a crushing punch that tore through the air. Pushing upward, he leapt to the side and finally stood upright, but before he could even see his opponent clearly, the man was already upon him. Pow! A heavy impact, it felt like colliding with a bear. Klein staggered back, arms numb. Now, under the dim light, he finally saw his attacker, dark-skinned, lean but powerful with sunken eyes. It was Muro, the executioner from the Z-Manger gang, the same man who had visited Detective Moratti that morning. Muro's eyes gleamed with violence. He lunged again, fists blurring into a storm of hooks and jabs. Klein could barely keep up, relying on agility and intuition to dodge each blow. No, I have to use my advantage. He stopped engaging in melee, rolled to the side just in time as a chair exploded under Muro's kick. Supporting himself with one hand, Klein rolled again, searching for a moment to draw his cards or charms. But Muro was relentless. His movements were swift, brutal, a giant bear with the agility of a predator. Chairs splintered, the table flipped, the coat rack crashed to the floor. Klein's apartment turned into a battlefield. His situation was growing desperate. I can't keep this up. Then, through the corner of his eye, Klein spotted the coffee table in the living room, and a plan formed. He blocked a punch, leapt back toward the table, but Muro's legs bulged, muscles swelling like they were inflated with air. Boom! The floor cracked beneath his feet as he launched himself forward like a bullet. His kick struck Klein squarely, sending him crashing through the coffee table. Porcelain shattered, papers flew, the tea set smashed into the cupboard. Klein lay on the floor, gasping, momentarily unable to move. Muro advanced, a fierce glint in his eyes, knee driving forward through the debris. Klein's vision darkened, his hand tightened around something, a contract template from the coffee table. He'd come here for a reason. Ignoring the pain, he flicked his wrist. In his mind, a flash, an image of Muro's neck snapping backward. Swoosh! The contract shot forward like a blade of light. At less than a meter apart, Muro couldn't dodge. The sharp edge pierced his throat. Blood bubbled and spilled as he collapsed before Klein, clutching his neck. His eyes lost focus and then he stopped moving. Klein lay there for a moment, breathing heavily before standing back up, tarot cards ready in case of more attackers. He activated his spirit vision. No other auras, no movement. Silence. He exhaled, scanning the wreckage, broken furniture, shattered porcelain, torn sleeves, dust everywhere. Looking at the mess, he sighed softly. There's no way I can claim reimbursement for this. A laugh escaped his lips, sharp, almost hysterical. He laughed until his body trembled, the sound echoing through the ruined apartment. Then he stopped, his expression darkened. He knelt beside Muro's corpse. It was time to make the dead speak. Drawing on his mediumship and whispering his prayer, Klein entered a dreamlike trance. His eyes turned black as the world around him faded into gray. Images formed Muro standing before a well-dressed, middle-aged man with brown hair, blue eyes, and an elaborate white shirt with petal-shaped cuffs. "No matter what you do," the man said coldly, "find Ian Wright alive. If he's dead, bring his body within the hour, preferably within 15 minutes. "Yes, Mr. Ambassador," Muro replied. The dream shattered. Klein frowned. The ambassador of the Intis Republic, this involves another country. He reconstructed the ritual, diving back into the dream. The reason for finding Ian Wright. The scene returned, the same gentleman speaking again. "You don't need to know why, just follow orders. I gave you the potion and the money to become the power behind the Z-Manger gang, not to question me. Ian Wright is involved in an item of great importance." The dream dissolved. Klein opened his eyes. "An item of great importance, I can't tell Ian." His thoughts raced. A potion, so Muro was a beyonder, no wonder his strength was monstrous. But his body was exhausted. Answering his own summons had drained his spirituality. He estimated it would take reaching sequence 7 to fully recover his mediumship. After ending the ritual, he studied Muro's corpse carefully. A faint spiritual light shimmered at the wound in his throat, slowly condensing into a small, dark red lump. Klein picked it up. A beyonder characteristic. He gazed at it thoughtfully. "Let's see what kind of potion this belongs to. I'll find the answer above the gray fog." He sighed, feeling the weight of the mystery deepen once again. Chapter 229, The Lesser of Two Evils. Muro's body lay motionless, his eyes wide open, still filled with a murderous glare. The wound across his throat, once a thin line, had torn wider as the beyonder characteristic condensed within him. Now it was mangled and gruesome. A foul stench filled the air, the unpleasant aftermath of death. Klein held the crimson, jelly-like object in his hand, troubled by what to do next. He had 3 options. The first, clean up the scene, tend to his wounds, and report the incident to the police as self-defense. The second, wait until nightfall, dump the corpse into the sewers, and pretend nothing had happened. The third, abandon his identity entirely, flee to another borough, and start anew. The problem with the first choice was obvious. Klein was still an illegal resident, his past filled with secrets that could not withstand investigation. Reporting to the police might easily expose him. The second option was no better. Even if he hid the body, the ambassador behind Muro would soon notice his subordinate's disappearance. When that happened, someone stronger, perhaps a sequence 7 or even sequence 6, would come knocking. He'd be facing not just a man but a faction, maybe even a nation. The third choice seemed the safest: flee, vanish, erase himself from Backlund. But once his portrait appeared in the newspapers, witnesses like Mrs. Sammer and lawyer Jurgen would recognize him. And if the Nighthawks learned of it, things would become complicated. Especially with sealed artifact 8 involved. A high-ranking deacon might personally take charge of the hunt. He could also mix both ideas, hide the body first, then escape. But if the ambassador used the Z-Manger gang to call the police and mobilize the authorities, it would end the same way. After some thought, Klein made his decision. He would divine the answer. He was already leaning toward one choice, the lesser of two evils. The first option. Reporting to the police might carry risk, but it would also draw official attention, keeping the ambassador's forces in check. He took out a sheet of paper and wrote his divination statement. Then he unhooked his spirit pendulum, letting the topaz crystal dangle above the paper. "I should make a police report, I should make a police report." He silently repeated the incantation. The pendulum spun clockwise, weak but steady. A positive sign. He tested the other two options, both returned negative results. Without further hesitation, Klein began to act. He put on a pair of black gloves and searched Muro's corpse. A dagger. A small stack of cash. Cigarettes. A lighter. A few odds and ends. He kept the useful items, then destroyed the wound with the dagger, blurring the shape of the fatal injury. Afterwards, he made Muro's hand grasp the weapon, staging the scene. Next, Klein gathered everything related to Beyonder matters: the crimson characteristic, charms, tarot cards, the bloodstained contract, and his divination note. He packed them neatly into a paper bag. Performing a summoning ritual, he ascended to the world above the gray fog, carrying Azek's copper whistle. There he stored all suspicious items behind the fool's high-backed chair. Then he let himself return to his body. The reason he didn't burn the divination note or the bloodstained contract was simple. If the case were handed over to a special department, a powerful Beyonder might attempt divination. But with the gray fog's interference, even if the eternal blazing sun himself descended, he would learn nothing. That was why Klein always placed his sensitive notes above the gray fog, especially after advancing to Sequence 8. He could not risk further suspicion. After removing the spiritual wall, a faint breeze swept away the smell of ritual materials. Now, the only mystical objects remaining in his home were the candles burning silently before him, ordinary candles this time. Perfectly normal for a bachelor living in Backlund. He extinguished them, tidied up, and checked his golden pocket watch. He calculated the time since Muro's death, making sure that at least an hour would pass before investigators arrived. In spirit channeling, the longer the delay, the less accurate the information. Even if someone divined the killer, they might only see the name Sherlock Moriarty, not the truth. And any attempt to peer deeper would only lead them into the gray fog, where nothing could be seen. Klein smiled faintly. Feels like I've really become Moriarty. After confirming everything was in order, he left the house. Rain drizzled over the gaslit streets of Minsk Street. Spotting two patrolling constables, he hurried toward them. "Officers, a criminal attacked me," he shouted, his disheveled look selling the story. The two policemen exchanged wary glances, drawing their batons. "Where's the criminal?" the round-faced one asked. "He's in my home," Klein replied. "He tried to kill me, I fought back and accidentally killed him." "Stabbed him to death," one muttered, exchanging looks with his partner. "Take us there." Klein nodded and led them back to 15 Minsk Street. They entered and froze at the sight, the body on the floor, the bloody dagger still in Muro's grasp. "Watch the scene," one constable said. "I'll call the inspector." Soon a sergeant arrived, a stern man with a short brownish-yellow beard. He began questioning Klein as others investigated. "Name?" "Sherlock Moriarty," Klein replied, showing his half-year rental receipt. "Occupation?" "Private detective." The sergeant frowned. "Do you know the deceased? Why did he attack you?" "I do. His name's Muro, executioner of the Z-Manger gang," Klein said calmly. "I'd taken a commission from Ian Wright to investigate his former employer, Detective Zerrel Victor Lee. That led me to the Z-Manger gang and to Muro. He met secretly with someone Muro called Mr. Ambassador." At that, the sergeant's expression changed. "Ambassador, you know his name?" "I don't," Klein admitted, "but if I saw his face, I'd recognize him. This morning, Muro came demanding I hand over Ian Wright. I refused, and tonight he attacked me. Thankfully, I reacted fast enough to survive." The sergeant pondered, then nodded. "You'll have to come to the station. We'll await the autopsy and investigation results." He paused mid-step and turned back. "One more thing, your faith." "God of steam and machinery," Klein answered without hesitation. The sergeant gave a brief nod. Good, that meant the case wouldn't fall under the Nighthawk's jurisdiction. Klein had successfully guided fate, choosing indeed the lesser of two evils. Chapter 230, Interrogation. In Prisburo, in an unremarkable house, Zoe and Fours took a seat at random and examined the writing on the blackboard. Like always, Mr. A sat quietly alone on the sofa at the front in his hooded robe, looking down at the crowd from a high vantage point. Sequence 8, Sheriff Potion Formula, 450 pounds. Zoe silently read the familiar content and let out a sigh of relief. The situation she feared most was that there wouldn't be a seller when she had finally gathered the money with great difficulty. "I received 400 pounds from the split plus my original savings of 150 pounds. That's enough, but I'll still need a huge sum for the main ingredient." All right, maybe I can change circles and see if there are any Beyonders who are interested in this formula. Zoe suddenly felt invigorated. She had found a possible way to make a fortune. Frankly speaking, there was no way she would leak the formula if she wasn't in desperate need of money to buy materials to concoct her potion. Most people hoped that there were fewer Beyonders in their own sequences. On the other hand, the price of the corresponding ingredients would rise significantly if there were too many competitors bidding on them. It was the same with subsequent potions. After some serious thought, Zoe became nervous again. It was common for a recipe to remain unsold for a long time. Moreover, the Arbiter pathway belonged to the royal family and the military. Everything was strictly controlled, and any leaked formulas came from a small number of destitute nobles. There were hardly any complete formulas for low to mid sequences. Often only one or two of them were complete, and even then the main ingredients were rare and controlled. Beyonders who chose this sequence were rather rare. Zoe had been in mysticism circles in Backlund for a long time, but she hadn't found another arbiter apart from herself. Perhaps others were concealing it well, or it could simply mean this pathway had serious limitations. Few, but compared to Fours, I'm lucky enough. She hasn't even encountered any of her subsequent recipes for apprentice all this time. Zoe saw Mr. A's attendant approaching and wrote a note, saying she was purchasing the sheriff's formula. Before long, she was led to a study on the first floor. Before entering, she took a hooded robe from the attendant and covered herself with it. The seller inside was dressed the same way, so neither could see the other's face. This is the formula for the sheriff potion. Where's my money? The seller asked hoarsely, pressing a folded paper onto the desk. Zoe pulled out the cash she had counted many times and pushed it forward. After checking the authenticity and total amount, the seller released the paper. Zoe immediately stepped forward and grabbed the note, scanning the main ingredients. A pair of terror demon worm's eyes, a silver war bear's right palm. Beyonder items I know of, but I've never seen them sold, Zoe sighed as she left the study and removed her robe. Back in the living room, she sat beside Fours. Having fulfilled her wish, she slowly began to worry about the unknown honorary name and the evil spirit that might be haunting her. 10 no, 20 no, 30 pounds, to request someone skilled in exorcism to do a purification ritual for me. Zoe made up her mind and, after whispering to Fours, beckoned for Mr. A's attendant. After the communication break ended, her request appeared as an additional entry on the blackboard. Suspected haunting of evil spirits, requesting help from someone skilled in exorcism, 30 pounds. After a while, Mr. A's attendant came over and quietly invited them to the first-floor living room. A man wearing a white mask was inside. He looked at the two hooded women and chuckled. "Let me introduce myself first so you won't doubt my ability." No, we trust Mr. A, Zoe said before Fours could speak. She deliberately lowered her voice to hide her youth. The man in the white mask spread his hands and laughed. "This is my habit. I am a believer of the sun. As you know, that's not common in Backlund or in the entire kingdom. It's only through moments like this that I can live as my true self." Due to the great conflict between the Church of the Eternal Blazing Sun and the Church of Storms, the former had never been allowed to proselytize in the Lone Kingdom. "A believer of the sun?" For's languid look instantly vanished. "This is the first time I've seen a living believer of the sun. Should I feel honored?" The masked man raised his arms in praise of the sun. "In terms of exorcism and purification," Force continued, "the attendant of the sun is a professional. Our hearts are at rest. We can begin." The man didn't drone on. He placed a badge with the sun's emblem on the round table, lit 2 candles using a dualistic ritual method, and began chanting in a loud, pious tone. "O sun that is eternal, you are an inextinguishable light. You are the embodiment of order. I pray to you, bestow upon me your cleansing glow. Repel the evil spirits in this body." Amid the echoing Hermes incantation, Zoe and Fours saw bright light burst from the sun's emblem, pure and warm, endless like a rising tide. The light engulfed them both. A minute later, the room returned to normal. Both of them felt warmth and relief. It was like soaking in a hot spring or basking in gentle sunlight. Sherwood Borough Rice Police Station. Klein sat on a low bench with a group of thieves and drunkards. It was a disgraceful sight. Suddenly, he felt warmth on the back of his hand as the chill of the night was dispelled. Lowering his head, Klein realized the 4 black dots representing the mysterious space above the gray fog hadn't appeared. "Who's being so kind as to know I was feeling a little cold?" he mumbled, half joking, half curious. As a former inspector, he looked at the thief handcuffed to the pipe on his left, then at the drunkard on his right who could vomit at any moment yet kept shouting about hitting people. He sighed at his predicament, unsure when he'd be free again. "There should be another test after this, then I'll be fine once I pass it. I just hope the police focus on the ambassador and the Z-Manger gang and ignore me. In theory, there's a high chance of that as long as Mrs. Sammer, Mr. Jurgen and the others don't say anything of interest." He comforted himself. "They just met me, so it's impossible for them to know too much. Muro's Beyonder characteristic was taken away by me and hidden above the gray fog. He didn't leave anything strange behind, so no one can discover that he used to be a Beyonder or question my strength." An hour passed. In his self-encouragement, Klein saw an officer with a short brownish-yellow beard walking toward him. "Sherlock Moriarty, come with me to the interrogation room," the sergeant said curtly. "Here it comes." Klein stood up and followed. After turning a corner, the sergeant stopped before an iron door and gestured for him to enter. Klein took a deep breath, exhaled, and opened it. It was a small room with thick walls and a table in the middle. 2 chairs sat opposite each other. Under the dim gaslight, Klein saw the interrogator, a man in a black shirt and coat, thin eyebrows, cold blue eyes, and a rigid, merciless face. The man pointed to the chair. "I ask you answer." Before the sentence finished, Klein felt an overwhelming suppressive force tear through his mind, an electric current lashing at his soul with a barbed whip. Painful, numbing, irresistible. He barely managed to sit down, clutching the table as his temples throbbed. This is a Beyonder power, he thought. Ordinary people would mistake it for psychological pressure, but this is a mental attack. Recalling what he'd read, Klein quickly identified it. Arbiter Pathway Sequence 7 Interrogator. "Has this case been transferred to a special department of the military?" he wondered. "As long as it's not the Nighthawks, that's fine." "Identify the ambassador who met Muro from these photographs," the interrogator said, spreading 8 black and white photos on the table. Klein felt the electric whip of pain hovering above him. He didn't dare lie, and there was no reason to. After examining them, he pushed one photo forward, a middle-aged gentleman in ostentatious clothing. The interrogator glanced at it, then asked, "Were your previous statements the truth?" Klein steadied his mind under the mental assault. "Nothing but the truth." The interrogator leaned forward, hands on the table. "When was the last time you met Ian Wright?" "Yesterday morning," Klein replied with effort. "I tailed Muro and found the body of Detective Zerial. Not wanting to deal with the police, I brought Ian to identify the body and told him to call them. It was at the sewer entrance at the bottom of Iron Carbon Street, East Borough." After a brief silence, the interrogator nodded. The oppressive pressure vanished instantly. "You may leave now." Klein stood up, his steps unsteady. He felt more exhausted than after fighting Muro. "If I'd made a single mistake, my mind would have been crushed," he thought. "If not for my unique spirit tested by madness and screams for so long, I would have broken down completely." As he walked down the corridor, the sergeant approached again. "Come with me to fill out some forms. Lawyer Jurgen is waiting to bail you out." "Phew," Klein exhaled softly, finally relaxing. He knew the danger was over. That's it for today's chapter. If you liked this mysterious journey, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. The next story might be even darker.